And welcome back to our community. Susie Thomas visiting with you this morning with Doug Scholes, who is the State Executive Director, and Tildy Bricker, who is the Victim Services Specialist from Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And they join us from the Columbus office of MAD. Excited about this Red Ribbon program, and I know, though, that there are so many cool things. In the future of MAD looks very, very exciting. Not just in having to react to horrible tragedies, but in ways to prevent. And Doug, you were telling me about some of the advanced technology that's on the forefront. Tell us a little bit about this.
Sure. As a result of some of the statistics that we've studied over the past decade, we've seen a steady decline in the number of fatalities across the country from impaired driving up until about the turn of the century, the new millennium. And we've seen a flat line of fatalities over the past 10 years. They've gone up and down, but really have stayed about the same. And after a long period of research and study, it's been determined that where we want to go in the future is by using technology that we have and that we can develop. We've passed a lot of laws, and it's saved a lot of lives, but a person continues to drive impaired over and over again, and there's a lot of repeat drunk drivers, because they can turn a key in the ignition. And once they can do that, taking away a license or giving them a fine doesn't really stop them from doing that. So in the future, where we want to go is we want to develop advanced technology. And by the way, it's being developed already with prototypes. And when you push your finger on the start button of the new technology on vehicles, it will measure your blood alcohol content immediately within a second. And the car would be predetermined to not start at a 0.08 or higher. And so we can effectively just wipe out impaired driving going into the future. We're very, very close to that. Within the next 2 to 3 years, it should be out. So we're very excited about that.
That's absolutely phenomenal to think about that your car just won't start if you're impaired. And now, would that be something like a built-in breathalyzer in every car?
No,
How does that work?
and that's a great question, because a lot of people confuse that. This is not what we see. Now we have they're called ignition interlock devices. They have a breath tube in the vehicle. That's not what we're talking about. Those are very much outdated, if you will. This is very passive technology. It's actually measured transdermally through the skin. So when you push your finger on the button, it measures your BAC level without you even really knowing about it. You wouldn't even know it's there. And again, it's almost instantaneous. And within a second, if you're at a 0.08 or higher, you won't be able to drive that vehicle. It just won't start for you.
And it's more through the skin than through the breath, correct?
That's correct. There's a couple of prototypes. One is through the breath, but the one that's going to probably happen is through the skin. That's correct.
Just incredible. All right. I know that you do an awful lot with young people as far as just preventing ever drinking and driving. Tell us about some of those programs.
More programs we have, we call the Power of Parents. This is really for parents of teens or middle schoolers. And what we found, we've been working with a Dr. Robert Tracy from Penn State University, who's developed a very, very high-level program for parents of teens and middle schoolers. And they found throughout the years that many students who graduate and go on to college or leave home really haven't been faced with a lot of tough decisions. They face some peer pressure in high school, but not like you do when they're away from the family and away from home. And this is a program developed for parents to engage in effective dialogue with their teens or middle schoolers well before they leave home, so that when they're faced with tough choices, they can make the right decisions about alcohol and drinking and driving.
Is this the kind of thing where they just remind people that if you don't bring it up and you don't talk to your child about this, somebody else will, and it might not be the input that you would want them to have?
That's a good part of it. It goes much deeper than that. There's a handbook that we give out. And by the way, we give out 30-minute workshops, free workshops to any parent of teens who wants that, just by request. We'll schedule it on our schedule, no cost, and we'll come to you, and we'll go through the handbook with you that's been developed. And it talks about how to engage in effective conversation. There's many types of, personalities, you would call it, with students and children. And this tells you how to get through that. They also talk about tough questions like, well, didn't you drink and drive when you were a teenager, or didn't you engage in alcohol? And it tells you how to address those kind of really tough questions that parents like to shy away from.
How do you? We'll have some people listening right now that were saying, hey, that was exactly what I was wondering about.
Well, I won't go into all the handbook there, but there's many different techniques on how to engage in effective two-way communication. and how to. And I think being honest, it does address that. That being honest is the way to do it, but at the same time, we don't want to be distracted and go down a track that takes us away from the focus of being safe and making responsible choices that we've learned over the years to make.
Another thing about parents and the power of parents are some flags that parents should be watching for. Do you have some good ideas for parents listening right now as far as some things that might be tells that their child, their student, is getting involved into alcohol?
Well, I can say this, that there, and many, again, this book also talks about the different types of personalities, and there's many children react differently in different ways. But the one thing that you will hear a lot is the perceived peer pressure that everybody's drinking, Mom, everybody's drinking, Dad. That's just not the facts. The fact is the majority of students aren't drinking in middle school or high school, but they would have you believe that. The most important thing I think to really focus on is to be actively engaged in your child's really affairs, if you will, where they're going out to, who they're hanging out with, and the mannerism of what they're talking about. Are they talking about partying? Are they talking about going to places that aren't safe? These are the red flags, and this book talks about how to address that. Unfortunately, we're seeing the age of first use of alcohol get lower and lower and lower down to the 8th grade level. And we're seeing many, many more, unfortunately, middle schoolers engaged in alcohol now.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, you would think 35 years after MADD got started that maybe we'd be seeing less and less of that. Any idea of why? Why is that beginning earlier and earlier?
I'm not sure I'm the one who can answer that. That might be a behavioral psychologist question. It's just a norm of our society that we're seeing that now. And I think what we want to try to do is prevent that from a parental perspective. Because one thing I neglected to say is that it's been proven that while children listen to many of their peers, they listen to their parents more than anybody else, and that's been proven. And even though we don't think that's the case, it's been proven that we are the number one people they listen to. So parents are much more powerful than we give ourselves credit for.
That is so encouraging. We're speaking with Doug Scholes. He's the State Executive Director at MAD. Also, Tildy Bricker is Victim Service Specialist. You both have a very hard day-to-day job, and what you do is wonderful, being able to help people that are affected by this horrible crime. How do you cope when you're dealing with constant tragedy after tragedy after tragedy?
Well, we try to speak with one another, and work with each other that way. There's a process called debriefing that we're able to tap into once a month with our national office. And that helps tremendously because we're able to help give each other, tips and just be a listening ear to someone who may have a case that could be, problematic. And oftentimes there's a lot of encouraging things that are said there so that we could help one another amongst ourselves. And the work that we do is so different each and every day that sometimes, because we do wear a lot of hats, we know that everything kind of works together for the best outcome. So a lot of the different programs that we do, we get involved with a lot of different ones, and it gets us doing other things in addition that help the overall mission of MAD, to eliminate drunk driving, to help the victims of the violent crime, and to, prevent underage drinking and drug driving. So, it all kind of dovetails and works together, and it makes for a nice day every day.
Yeah.
And I might add in there, because Tildy may be a bit modest, that the advocates that we have here in Ohio, the victim service specialists, and across the country, are very, very highly trained. They have a wealth of experience, and they are trained to actually to confront things like you just said in stressful environments, how to react to that, and also to be very professional. Victims and survivors of impaired driving crashes will latch on to our victim service specialists for many years to come. So it's a very demanding and challenging job, but I think the ones who are doing that have a very special gift, and she's one of those for sure.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it. And you just mentioned that relationship, it's over quickly in any way that this is something that could take years and years and years for a family to process and get through and begin to function again on the other side. What success stories have you gotten to see as far as families work through the grieving process and then moving forward?
Well, I think it's good to work together, with the crime victim families in MAD. It's like a partnership, and where we kind of join forces together, and with greater numbers, you just can accomplish so much more. And so whether it be for maybe becoming an advocate oneself and helping other crime victims, because there are so many, and the state is pretty big with 88 counties. You can just imagine.
Yes.
So, we always need help and volunteers in that respect. They help us with legislation to change laws so that there could be a better quality of life for all Ohioans, because they don't want other people to go through what they go through. Right now, we have a hit-skip bill that's in the State House that it would be Brandon's Law if it's passed, and we also have another that's called Annie's Law, and that would be an interlock bill that would help lessen the number of fatalities by about 33% if that's passed, before we even get into the prototype vehicles that are scheduled to come out. So, every day is just, we're always working to try and make things better, to try and lessen, all the carnage on the roadways that exists every day. We have to be careful, and that's why we try to, do things like this radio station, talk with you, and let others know that, you have to be on a qui-vive when you're on the roadway. You just never know when a drunk driver or drug driver may present himself or herself.
Yes. What's your website for those who may want to help in this effort?
www.mad.org/OH.
And how happy are you that Issue 3 went down?
Oh, I'm just ecstatic. Ecstatic. I don't think that Ohio was prepared in any way to deal with recreational drugs. It's not that we had a position on it, but I think that if you're not ready to venture into something like that, I just think it's probably best that it didn't go forward.
Well, we want to remind everybody about these 2 events coming up. First of all, beginning now and through all of the holidays that we go through in December, we've got Tie One On for safety. And again, how can people get those red ribbons?
They can call the MAD office at our toll-free number, 800-552-8641. Or simply go to our website, mad.org/OH.
And could you real quickly just go over all the nuts and bolts about our National Day of Remembrance coming up on December 3rd?
You could, through Facebook, type in the MAD title, the MAD Facebook Victim Services, through Facebook, and that'll pop up, and that would get you connected, by liking that page. There's also a hashtag MADD in capital letters with remembers and small letters, and that helps to, if you go on a computer and you type that in, that helps bring all that up, and you'll find out more about our various MAD pages. We have one for MAD Victim Services. We have one for the MAD Victim Services group, which is a closed group. We have one for prevention. And so all of those would just be populated as you type that in.
Wonderful. We really want to give our thanks to Doug Scholes, Tilly Bricker, both from MAD, the Columbus Office of Mothers Against Drunk Driving. For more information, go to mad.org/Day of Remembrance. Thank you both for joining us this morning on Our Community.